Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about what it's really like to be an astronaut. And I mean really like. Not the Hollywood version with heroic speeches and dramatic music. Not the Instagram posts with beautiful Earth photos. But the actual moment-by-moment reality of being trapped in a metal coffin, floating 250 miles above everything you've ever loved. Knowing that one tiny mistake means you die alone in the endless black void. If you think you've had a bad day, if you think your life is stressful, if you think you understand what isolation feels like, you're about to discover you know absolutely nothing. This isn't going to be about rocket science or technical specifications. This is about the thousands of tiny things you do every single day without thinking, that become impossible nightmares when you're floating in space. Things so basic, so simple, so automatic, that you've never even noticed them, until they're gone forever. If you're new here, prepare to never take anything for granted again. And if you've been here before, you know what's coming. Get comfortable, because you're about to realize just how incredibly lucky you are to be lying wherever you are right now. We're stepping into the International Space Station, 254 miles above Earth. You are an astronaut, and you're about to learn why that's the most terrifying job in human history. You wake up floating, and your first thought isn't wonder or excitement. It's panic, because your body doesn't understand where it is. Your brain is screaming that you're falling, but you never hit the ground. You're just suspended in the middle of a metal tube, with nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. There's no bed to wake up in, just a sleeping bag strapped to the wall like a straitjacket. Your arms float in front of your face like a dead person. Your hair sticks up in every direction, making you look like you've been electrocuted. You try to sit up, but there is no up. There's no down either. Your body has no idea which way is which. Your inner ear is sending signals that make no sense, making you feel like you're going to vomit. And if you vomit in zero gravity, the chunks just float around your head, waiting to get sucked into the air recycling system. The first thing you want to do is what you've done every morning for your entire life. Get out of bed and walk to the bathroom. But there is no walking. There is no bathroom. Not like anything you've ever seen. You have to float, helplessly, bouncing off walls like a pinball, trying to grab handholds. But your body doesn't know how to move without gravity. You crash into equipment, into walls, into other astronauts, like a drunk person in a house of mirrors. You finally reach the toilet, and it's not a toilet. It's a vacuum cleaner with a tiny funnel attached to a wall. You have to strap yourself down with a harness, like you're being restrained in a mental hospital, just to go to the bathroom. And peeing, something you've done thousands of times without thinking, becomes a life or death engineering problem. Because if the vacuum doesn't work perfectly, urine just floats around the space station, getting into the computers, into the air you breathe, into your eyes and mouth. You can't just flush and forget. Every drop of liquid is precious, because it gets recycled into your drinking water. That's right, you're literally drinking your own recycled pee and everyone else's pee, and it tastes exactly like you think it would. After 20 minutes of strapping yourself to a toilet, you float toward what they call the kitchen, but it's not a kitchen. It's a wall with a water dispenser and some heating elements. There's no refrigerator, no stove, no sink, no plates, no cups, no normal food. Everything you eat comes from a pouch, like baby food or dog food. Rehydrated scrambled eggs that taste like rubber. Thermostabilized beef stew that looks like vomit. Freeze-dried ice cream that turns to powder in your mouth. You can't just open the pouch and eat, because the food will float away. Every crumb, every drop, becomes a projectile flying around the space station. You have to catch each piece with your mouth, like a trained seal, while trying not to breathe the floating particles into your lungs. There's no sitting down for breakfast, no table, no chair, no routine that feels human. You just float there, sucking food from a tube, watching crumbs drift past your face, realizing that you haven't tasted anything fresh, anything real, anything that didn't come from a laboratory in months. You miss the dumbest things. like dropping something and watching it fall, like feeling the weight of a coffee cup in your hands, like the sound of cereal hitting a bowl, like eating without having to catch every bite before it flies away. After your gourmet space breakfast, you float toward the cupola, the window area where you're supposed to feel inspired by the view of Earth. But instead of wonder, you feel the most profound loneliness any human has ever experienced. You see Earth, your entire world, everything you've ever known, everyone you've ever loved, reduced to a blue marble floating in infinite blackness. You can see entire countries in one glance, but you can't touch them, can't smell them, can't feel the wind or the sun or the rain. You watch the sunrise, and 90 minutes later, you watch the sunset, and 90 minutes after that, another sunrise. Your body has no idea what time it is. Your circadian rhythms are completely destroyed. You feel like you're going insane, like time has lost all meaning. You can see your hometown. Maybe, if you're lucky and the clouds aren't covering it, but it looks like a tiny dot, smaller than your fingernail. Everyone you love, your family, your friends, your pets, your favorite restaurant, your childhood bedroom, all invisible, reduced to nothing, lost in the vastness. You try to call home, but there's a delay and static, and your voice sounds strange in the recycled air. Your family sounds like they're calling from another universe, which they basically are. They tell you about their day, about the weather, about normal problems, and you realize you're not part of their world anymore. You're not human anymore. You're something else, floating in a metal can, breathing recycled air, drinking recycled urine, eating paste from tubes, more alone than any person has ever been in the history of our species. The work begins, and it's not exciting exploration. It's maintenance, constant, terrifying maintenance. Everything breaks in space, all the time. And if something breaks, you can't call a repair guy, you can't order parts, you can't go to the hardware store. You are the repair guy, except you're floating, and every tool wants to drift away. And if you drop a screw, it could float into critical equipment and kill everyone. Every task that takes 5 minutes on Earth takes 3 hours in space. You're trying to fix a water recycling system, because if it breaks completely, you die of thirst, and your hands are clumsy in the thick gloves, and sweat is building up inside your spacesuit, and you can't wipe your face, and the sweat gets in your eyes, burning, blinding, but you can't stop, because the survival of 6 people depends on this one repair. Every day, something new breaks. The toilet stops working. The air scrubber starts making strange noises. The communication system goes down. Each failure is a potential death sentence. And there's no backup plan except try to fix it and hope you don't die. You miss having solid ground under your feet. You miss being able to set something down without it floating away. You miss privacy because cameras watch everything you do. You miss taking a shower because water doesn't fall in space. It just forms floating bubbles that you have to catch with a towel. You miss opening a window for fresh air because the only thing outside is vacuum that would kill you in 15 seconds. You miss the smell of anything, grass, rain, food cooking, flowers, because everything in space smells like hot metal and recycled air and fear. You miss crying properly, because tears don't fall, they just stick to your eyes like little domes, making everything blurry. You miss feeling heavy, feeling substantial, feeling like you exist in the world instead of floating through it like a ghost. Lunchtime comes, and it's the same routine, pouches and tubes, and catching floating crumbs. But today something goes wrong. A small piece of food escapes and floats toward the control panel. You chase it, bouncing off walls, desperate to catch it before it gets into the computers, because one crumb in the wrong place could shut down life support. You finally catch it, but now you're sweating and exhausted and your heart is racing from chasing a piece of bread around a room. This is your life now. Everything is dangerous. Everything is critical. Everything could kill you. The afternoon is scheduled for exercise because your bones are dissolving. Your muscles are wasting away. Your cardiovascular system is shutting down. So you strap yourself to a treadmill, and run while going nowhere, staring at the same wall for 2 hours every day to fight the inevitable destruction of your body. But you can't really run because there's no gravity to keep your feet on the treadmill. So you're held down by a harness that cuts into your shoulders, bouncing up and down. While your bones get weaker, your muscles atrophy, your heart forgets how to pump blood against gravity. You're literally falling apart, piece by piece, day by day, and there's nothing you can do about it. When you return to Earth, if you return to Earth, you'll be so weak you can't walk, can't lift your head, can't function like a normal human being. Evening comes, but there is no evening, just another arbitrary time designation in your floating prison. You try to relax, but relaxation is impossible when you're constantly floating, constantly catching things, constantly worried about equipment failures. You float to the window again, hoping to feel something, anything, but Earth just looks farther away, more impossible to reach. You can see city lights, millions of people going about their normal lives, driving cars, walking on sidewalks, sitting in chairs, taking showers, hugging their families. All the things you can never do again. You try to sleep, but sleep is a nightmare in space. You float in your sleeping bag, arms drifting in front of your face. No pillow, no blanket, no comfortable position. The space station makes constant noises, fans running, pumps working, metal expanding and contracting, like sleeping inside a machine. Every 15 minutes, you pass from sunlight to darkness and back to sunlight. Your body has no idea when it's supposed to sleep. You're exhausted but wired, tired but alert. Your brain confused by the unnatural cycle of light and dark. You close your eyes and try to remember what it felt like to fall asleep in a real bed, with gravity holding you down, with a pillow under your head, with the familiar sounds of Earth outside your window. But the memories feel like dreams, like they happened to someone else. Hours pass, or maybe minutes. Time has no meaning here. You drift in and out of consciousness, floating in a metal tube, 254 miles above everything you've ever loved, knowing that tomorrow will be exactly the same, and the day after that, and the day after that. For months, you dream about walking, about feeling your feet on solid ground, about dropping something and watching it fall, about rain on your face, about the smell of fresh air, about sitting in a chair without floating away, about simple things that seemed boring when you had them. But you wake up floating, and nothing has changed. You're still trapped, still alone, still drinking recycled urine, still eating paste from tubes, still counting the days until you can return to the world of gravity and weather and normal human experiences. If you ever return, because space doesn't care about your schedule. Equipment fails, missions get extended, people get sick, and there's no ambulance coming, no hospital nearby, no doctor who can help. If something goes seriously wrong with your body, you just die, floating in a metal tube, while your crewmates watch helplessly. You miss everything, absolutely everything, about normal life on Earth. The feeling of water falling on you in the shower, the ability to walk from one room to another, the simple pleasure of sitting down, the comfort of sleeping in a real bed, the joy of eating food that has texture and flavor. You miss breathing air that doesn't taste like machinery. You miss the weight of gravity making you feel substantial, real, connected to something solid. You miss privacy, quiet, the ability to go outside whenever you want. You miss weather, rain and snow and wind. You miss seasons changing. You miss the smell of grass and flowers and cooking food. You miss the sound of birds and traffic and normal human activity. You miss being part of the world instead of floating above it, watching it like a movie you can never enter. You miss feeling like a human being instead of an experiment in survival. And slowly, gradually, you realize that everything you took for granted, every boring, routine, automatic part of normal life, was actually a miracle. Every simple thing you ignored was actually extraordinary. Every mundane moment was actually precious. The ability to drop something and watch it fall. The feeling of sitting in a chair. The simple act of walking across a room. Taking a normal shower. Eating real food. Sleeping in a real bed. Breathing fresh air. Feeling the sun on your face without dying from radiation. All of it, every tiny detail of normal human existence, becomes a fantasy, a memory, a dream of paradise that you can see but never touch. You float there in your metal prison, looking down at the world, and you understand, finally, completely, what it means to be grateful, what it means to appreciate the extraordinary miracle of ordinary life. You've been in space for 3 months now, and your body is doing weird stuff you never thought about. Your face looks like you got stung by 1,000 bees, all puffy and swollen, because there's no gravity to pull the fluids down. You look sick all the time. Even though you're not sick, you just look horrible. Your back hurts like someone is stretching you on a torture rack, because your spine is literally getting longer. Your bones are getting taller but weaker, like someone is pulling you apart inch by inch. It hurts so bad you can't sleep, but you can't take aspirin because pills float around and get stuck in your throat. You're getting weaker every single day. You can feel your muscles disappearing. Your arms look like stick arms. Your legs look like bird legs. You do exercise for hours, but it doesn't work. Your body is eating itself, turning your muscles into food because there's nothing else left. But the worst part isn't your body falling apart. The worst part is your brain going crazy. You start talking to the walls, having full conversations with screwdrivers. You apologize to your toothbrush when you drop it. You name the floating crumbs and get sad when they get sucked into the air filter. You forget what your kids look like. You forget what your mom's voice sounds like without the radio static. You forget what it feels like to hug someone, to feel another person's body weight against yours, to know that someone real is touching you. You call home and your wife tells you about taking the kids to McDonald's, and you can't remember what French fries taste like. You can't remember what it's like to bite into something crispy, something that doesn't come from a tube, something that actually has flavor. She tells you it's raining, and you cry because you can't remember what rain feels like on your skin. You can see rain on Earth from your window, but you can't feel it, can't smell it, can't stand outside and get wet. It's like watching TV of your old life. Your son tells you he lost a tooth, and you can't remember what it's like to feel a loose tooth with your tongue, what it's like to have solid food to chew, what it's like to bite into an apple and hear the crunch. Everything about normal human life starts feeling like fairy tales. You become obsessed with stupid things. You spend hours thinking about what it would feel like to drop something and watch it fall, to set a cup down on a table and have it stay there, to walk across a room without bouncing off the ceiling like a ping pong ball. You dream about sitting in a chair, just sitting, feeling the weight of your body pressing down, feeling stable, feeling like you belong somewhere. But you wake up floating, always floating, like a ghost that can never rest. Food becomes torture, not because you're hungry, but because eating reminds you of everything you've lost. You suck scrambled eggs from a tube and remember Sunday morning breakfast with your family, sitting around a table, passing the bacon, talking and laughing with food in your mouth. Now you eat alone, floating in a corner, trying not to let the food escape and fly around the room, trying not to think about how it tastes like cardboard mixed with sadness. Every meal reminds you that you're not really living anymore, just surviving. You can't shower. You wipe yourself with baby wipes like you're in a nursing home. But worse, because at least nursing home patients can feel clean water sometimes. You haven't felt truly clean in 3 months. You smell like a gym sock filled with fear. Your hair is gross and greasy and sticks to your head like seaweed. You try to wash it, but the soap just floats around in bubbles, getting in your eyes, up your nose, into the computers. Hair washing becomes a 2-hour disaster that leaves you dirtier than when you started. You miss the dumbest things. You miss feeling heavy. You miss your feet touching the ground. You miss the sound of your footsteps. You miss walking upstairs. You miss the feeling of sitting down after standing up. You miss feeling like you weigh something, like you exist in the world instead of floating through it like smoke. You watch Earth turn below you, and instead of feeling amazed, you feel like you're in prison, watching life through bars, seeing everything you want but can never have. It's like being dead but still conscious, like being a ghost watching the living. You can see your hometown, maybe, if there are no clouds, but it looks smaller than a dot. Everyone you love, your house, your bed, your favorite restaurant, your dog, all invisible, all impossible to reach, all living their lives without you. The mission keeps getting longer. Equipment breaks, experiments fail, supply ships get delayed. What was supposed to be 6 months becomes 8 months, then 10, then a year, and you realize you might never be the same person who left Earth. You start hating people on Earth, not because they hurt you, but because they don't appreciate what they have. They complain about traffic while sitting in comfortable cars. They complain about their beds being too soft. They complain about having too much food. You want to scream at them through the radio? Do you know how lucky you are to walk to your car? Do you understand what a miracle it is to sleep in a bed that doesn't float away? Do you realize that complaining about too much food is the most beautiful problem in the universe? But you can't, because they're living normal lives, and you chose to leave. You chose to float in a metal can, to drink your own recycled pee, to watch your body fall apart, to slowly lose your mind from loneliness. Alarms start going off, and for a second you feel happy, because maybe this nightmare will finally end. But then you realize the alarm means you might die, right here, right now, floating in space, never feeling solid ground again, never hugging your kids again, never eating real food again. You and the other astronauts float around like panicked fish, checking everything, pressing buttons, trying to figure out what's wrong, but you can't find the problem. The alarm keeps screaming, but everything looks normal. You might have minutes to live, or hours, or days. Nobody knows. You think about dying here, floating forever, becoming space garbage, and the worst part isn't dying. The worst part is that you actually want it to end. You want to stop floating, stop pretending this is living, stop enduring this slow-motion torture that never ends. But the alarm stops. The problem goes away, or maybe there never was a problem. Maybe the computer just wanted to remind you that you could die at any second, for any reason, or no reason at all. You float there, shaking, not from fear of death, but from disappointment that you're still alive, still trapped, still floating in this metal coffin, still pretending that this is some kind of achievement instead of the worst mistake you ever made. You realize you've been gone so long that you're forgetting how normal things work. Like, how do you pour water when it doesn't float away? How do you walk when every step doesn't launch you into the ceiling? How do you sit in a chair when chairs don't exist in your world anymore? Your family sends you videos of birthday parties and barbecues, and you watch them like they're movies about aliens. These people eating cake without chasing every crumb, sitting in chairs like it's no big deal, walking around like gravity isn't a miracle. It all looks fake, impossible, like special effects. Your daughter blows out candles on her birthday cake, and you realize you missed it. You're floating in a metal tube eating paste while your little girl had a birthday party without you. She's growing up, learning to ride bikes, losing teeth, having nightmares. And you're not there. You're just watching her life happen through a computer screen. You try to sing happy birthday to her over the radio, but your voice sounds weird in the recycled air, and there's a delay, and she's already moved on to opening presents by the time your song reaches Earth. You're not part of her life anymore. You're just a voice from space, like a ghost calling from heaven. The other astronauts start getting weird too. One guy talks to his food before eating it, like he's apologizing to the scrambled eggs for what he's about to do. Another guy arranges his tools in perfect patterns, moving them 1 inch to the left, then 1 inch to the right, over and over, for hours. You catch yourself doing crazy stuff too, like counting the floating crumbs, giving them names, getting upset when they get sucked into the air filter. You apologize to equipment when you bump into it. You say good morning to the walls. You have conversations with Earth through the window, even though Earth can't hear you. Sleep becomes impossible, not just because you're floating, but because every 90 minutes you go from day to day again. Your brain has no idea when to be tired, when to be awake, when to dream. You exist in permanent jet lag, permanent confusion, permanent exhaustion. You close your eyes and try to remember what your bed feels like, the weight of blankets, the feeling of a pillow under your head, the way your body sinks into the mattress. But the memories feel made up, like you're imagining what beds might be like if they existed. Food becomes the only thing you think about, not space food, real food. You spend hours remembering what pizza tastes like, how the cheese stretches, how you can bite it without it floating away, how you can eat it while sitting in a chair, like a normal human being. You remember ice cream, how it melts on your tongue, how it's cold and sweet and doesn't come from a tube. You remember coffee, how it smells when you first open the can, how it tastes when it's hot, how you can drink it without it forming floating bubbles that get up your nose. You remember bread, fresh bread, how it feels to tear it with your hands, how it smells when it's baking, how you can make a sandwich and eat it without every ingredient floating in different directions. Simple things that seemed boring when you had them now seem like the greatest inventions in human history. Your wife calls and tells you she made your favorite dinner, and you can't remember what your favorite dinner is. You know it exists, you know you used to love it, but you can't remember what food tastes like when it's not rehydrated powder, when it has texture, when it has flavor, when it's made with love instead of science. She asks what you want to eat when you get home, and you start crying because you want everything. You want to eat a hamburger, a real hamburger, with lettuce that crunches and tomatoes that are juicy and a bun that you can hold without it floating away. You want to eat cereal and hear it crunch and taste the milk and not worry about drops floating into your eyes. You want to eat soup, hot soup, that stays in the bowl instead of forming floating spheres that you have to catch with your mouth like a trained seal. The medical experiments get worse. They want to test how your brain is changing, how isolation affects your thinking, how floating affects your sense of direction. They ask you questions that don't make sense, show you pictures that look wrong, test your reflexes that don't work anymore. They tell you your bone density is dropping faster than expected, your muscles are disappearing quicker than predicted, your heart is getting weaker, your brain scans show changes they've never seen before. You're not just visiting space, you're being transformed by it into something that isn't quite human anymore. You look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself. Your face is puffy and pale. Your hair is floating like you're underwater. Your eyes look scared and confused. You look like someone who's been lost for months, which is exactly what you are. You try to exercise, but exercise in space is torture. You're strapped to a treadmill like a mental patient, running in place while going nowhere. Your bones getting weaker with every step. Your muscles disappearing despite all the work. Your body betraying you no matter what you do. You run for 2 hours and end up weaker than when you started. You lift weights that aren't really weights, just resistance machines that pretend to be gravity, but your bones know the difference. Your muscles know the difference. Your body knows it's dying, inch by inch, day by day. The worst part is the loneliness. Not just being away from people, but being away from everything that makes you feel human. Away from weather, from animals, from plants, from anything alive. You're surrounded by machines and metal and the endless black void that wants to kill you. You watch Earth and see storms and clouds and lights from cities. And you know there are people down there feeling rain and wind and sun. People walking dogs and watering plants and breathing air that smells like flowers, while you're trapped in a metal box breathing the same air over and over. You see the ocean and remember what water feels like when you jump in, how it covers your whole body, how it's cold and wet and real. Now the only water you touch comes from a tube, recycled from your own urine, warm and metallic and wrong. You see forests, green and alive and moving in the wind, and remember what it feels like to walk on grass, to smell flowers, to hear birds singing. to feel connected to something bigger than yourself. Now you're disconnected from everything, floating in emptiness, more alone than any human has ever been. 6 months becomes 8 months. 8 months becomes 10 months. 10 months becomes a year, and you start to understand that you might never recover from this, might never feel normal again, might never be able to appreciate Earth life the way you used to. You're changing into something else, something adapted to artificial environments, something that can survive in metal tubes but can't really live on planets. You're becoming a space creature, and space creatures don't belong on Earth. But you're still human enough to know what you've lost, still human enough to remember what you used to be, still human enough to understand that every single thing about normal life on Earth is precious, miraculous, impossible to appreciate until it's gone. And you know, with absolute certainty, that if you ever make it home, if you ever feel gravity again, if you ever breathe fresh air again, you will never, ever take any of it for granted. You will spend the rest of your life grateful for the simple miracle of being human, on Earth, where humans belong. The calendar says you've been up here for 14 months now, but time doesn't mean anything when you live the same nightmare every day. Wake up floating, eat paste from tubes, fix broken equipment, stare at Earth through a window, go to sleep floating, repeat forever. Your body is basically dead now. You weigh 90 pounds when you used to weigh 160. Your arms look like twigs. Your legs look like someone stretched out chicken bones. Your face looks like a skeleton with skin stretched over it. You're becoming a floating corpse that's still somehow alive. Your bones are so weak now that sneezing might break your ribs. Coughing feels like your chest is going to collapse. Moving too fast makes you dizzy because your heart forgot how to pump blood properly. You're 28 years old, but your body is falling apart like you're 90. The doctors on Earth keep asking how you're feeling. And you want to tell them you feel like you're slowly dissolving, like you're becoming less real every day, like you're turning into a ghost that haunts a metal tube. But you just say fine, because what's the point of explaining horror to people who sleep in beds? Your crewmate Steve has started talking to his dead grandmother. Full conversations, asking her advice about equipment repairs, thanking her for bringing him lunch, even though lunch comes from tubes and his grandmother died when he was 12. Nobody mentions it because we're all going crazy in our own special ways. The other guy, Martinez, hasn't spoken in 3 weeks. He does his job, eats his food, stares out the window, but he won't talk to anyone, won't respond to mission control, won't even nod when you ask him questions. He's still breathing, but everything else that made him human has just stopped. You catch yourself doing weird stuff too, like having tea parties with floating screws. You arrange them in little circles and pretend they're your family. You talk to them about your day, ask them how school was, tell them bedtime stories. Because talking to metal screws feels more real than talking to people on Earth. You name all the equipment. The toilet is named Gerald. The food dispenser is Susan. The computer is Bob. You say good morning to them. Apologize when you bump into them. Thank them for working, because machines are more reliable than humans up here. Machines don't go crazy. Machines just break, and broken is easier to fix than insane. The supply mission that was supposed to come 2 months ago got delayed, then delayed again, then delayed again. Now they're not sure when it's coming. Maybe next month, maybe next year, maybe never. The food is running low, the water recycler is making weird noises, and if the supply ship doesn't come soon, you'll just die up here, slowly, quietly, like space garbage. You dream about the supply ship, but not about the supplies. You dream about the astronauts who would bring it, new people, with Earth germs, and Earth smells, and stories about Earth life. They would smell like outside air, like car exhaust, like restaurants, like anything except recycled metal tube air. But the supply ship doesn't come, and you're stuck with the same 2 people who are losing their minds in different ways, stuck in the same metal tube, breathing the same recycled air, eating the same paste, watching the same Earth rotate below you like a movie you've seen 1,000 times. Your family stops calling as much. At first it was every day, then every other day, then twice a week, now maybe once a week. They're moving on with their lives, which is normal, which is healthy, but it makes you feel like you're already dead, like they're forgetting you exist, like you're just a voice from space that interrupts their real life. Your daughter lost another tooth, learned to ride a bike, started reading chapter books, had her first sleepover, all without you. She's becoming a different person, growing up, having experiences you'll never share, building memories that don't include you. You're missing her childhood to float in a metal tube like an idiot. Your wife got a promotion at work, which is great, but she sounds different when she talks about it. Excited about things that don't involve you, making plans for a future you might not be part of. She's learning to live without you, which she should, but it feels like dying while still being alive. She tells you about painting the kitchen, and you can't remember what the kitchen looks like. You know you used to eat breakfast there, used to sit at a table, used to read the newspaper while drinking coffee, but the memories feel fake, like stories someone told you about someone else's life. Food becomes an obsession, not because you're hungry, you're always hungry, but because thinking about real food is the only thing that feels like being alive. You spend hours planning imaginary meals, what you'll eat first when you get home, what restaurant you'll go to, what your wife will cook. You plan entire days around food. Wake up and have pancakes, real pancakes, with syrup that doesn't float, and orange juice that stays in the glass, and bacon that crunches when you bite it. Then lunch at that burger place you used to go to, with fries that are crispy and a milkshake that's thick and cold. Then dinner with your family, around a real table, with real chairs, eating real food that your wife cooked, talking about normal things, passing the salt without it floating away, drinking wine that doesn't form bubbles in the air, feeling like a human being instead of a space experiment. But then you open your eyes and you're still floating, still eating paste from tubes, still drinking recycled urine, still living like a prisoner in solitary confinement. Except prisoners get to walk around their cells. Prisoners get real food sometimes. Prisoners get visitors. Prisoners get to breathe fresh air in the yard. You would trade places with any prisoner on Earth, just to feel gravity, to eat one real meal, to take one real shower, to sleep in a real bed, to feel like you weigh something, like you exist, like you matter to the physical world instead of just floating through it like smoke. The exercise equipment breaks, which means your bones will dissolve even faster. Your muscles will disappear even quicker. Your heart will get even weaker. But honestly, you don't care anymore. What's the point of staying healthy for a life you might never return to? What's the point of maintaining a body that doesn't work in space anyway? You stop exercising. Stop pretending that strapping yourself to machines for 3 hours a day makes any difference. Your body is going to fall apart no matter what you do. Might as well let it happen faster. Might as well embrace the inevitable dissolving of everything that makes you human. Mission Control gets upset about you skipping exercise, threatens to extend your mission if you don't maintain physical fitness standards. And you laugh, actually laugh out loud, because extending this nightmare is supposed to be punishment, when really it would just be more of the same hell you're already living. You tell them you'll exercise when they send you a real gym, with real weights, on a real planet, with real gravity. Until then, you'll just float here getting weaker, because pretending to exercise in space is like pretending to swim in air. Pointless, stupid, insulting to the concept of physical fitness. They threaten to send you to the space station psychiatrist, which would be Steve, who talks to his dead grandmother, or Martinez, who hasn't spoken in a month. The idea of getting mental health advice from people who are crazier than you makes you laugh until you cry, which makes you laugh more, which makes you cry harder. You're having a breakdown, a real psychological collapse, and there's nowhere to go, no one to help, no escape from the metal tube that's driving you insane. You're trapped with your broken mind, in a broken environment, getting more broken every day. But the worst part isn't going crazy. The worst part is staying sane enough to know you're going crazy, staying aware enough to understand how far you've fallen, staying human enough to remember what you used to be, before space turned you into this floating ghost of a person. You look at Earth and try to remember what it felt like to live there, to walk on solid ground, to breathe air that didn't taste like metal and fear, to eat food that had flavor, to sleep in beds that didn't float away, to exist as a physical being instead of a consciousness trapped in a dying body. But the memories are fading, becoming abstract, like stories you heard about a magical place where people could walk and sit and eat real food and feel the sun on their faces and hug each other and be happy. It sounds impossible now, like fairy tales, like lies people tell to make space seem worse than it is. You know you'll never be the same person who left Earth. That person died months ago, slowly, quietly, replaced by this floating shell, this space creature, this thing that looks human but doesn't feel human, doesn't think human, doesn't want human things anymore. You don't want to go home anymore, because home is for humans, and you're not human anymore. You're something else, something adapted to metal tubes and recycled air and floating through emptiness. Something that belongs in space. Even though space is hell, because hell is where monsters live. And that's what you are now. A monster, a failed experiment. A warning about what happens when humans try to live where humans don't belong. You're the proof that space exploration is really just an expensive way to destroy people, to turn them into floating ghosts, to break them so completely they can never be fixed. You've been counting sunrises, and you've seen over 6,000 of them, which means nothing, because sunrise happens every 90 minutes when you're traveling 17,000 miles per hour around a planet you can see but never touch. Time doesn't exist up here. Just endless cycles of light and dark that make no sense. Your fingernails keep growing, but cutting them is a nightmare because nail clippings become dangerous projectiles, flying around the station, getting into people's eyes, into the computers, into the food. You've given up cutting them. So now you look like a crazy person with long, dirty fingernails, floating in space like some kind of witch. Your hair has gotten so long and gross that it covers your face like seaweed. It's greasy and matted and smells terrible, but cutting it means hair flying everywhere, getting sucked into the air filters, clogging the ventilation system. So you just let it grow, let it tangle, let it turn you into something that doesn't look human anymore. You haven't seen your reflection clearly in months. The mirrors are small and dirty and the lighting is weird. But when you catch glimpses of yourself, you look like a skeleton covered in skin, with crazy hair and long fingernails, floating in a metal tube. You look exactly like what you are, a person who's been slowly dying in space for over a year. The toothpaste floats around in bubbles when you try to brush your teeth, getting in your eyes, up your nose, into your ears. Dental hygiene becomes a 30-minute disaster that leaves you feeling dirtier than when you started. Your teeth are getting loose, your gums are bleeding, your breath smells like decay, because even your mouth is falling apart. Martinez finally spoke yesterday, but only to scream. He woke up screaming about falling, about the walls closing in, about needing to go outside. He floated around the station clawing at the walls, trying to find a door, trying to escape, until Steve and you managed to calm him down, or at least get him to stop screaming. Now he just stares at the earth and whispers to himself, counting things, the clouds, the lightning, the city lights. He counts out loud for hours. 1,047, 1,048, 1,049. Like he's trying to count every human being on the planet. Like he's trying to remember that people exist. Steve's conversations with his dead grandmother are getting more elaborate. He sets out food for her, saves her a spot by the window, asks her opinion about everything. Yesterday, he got angry at Martinez for sitting in grandmother's chair, even though there are no chairs, just handholds on the walls. But Steve sees chairs and tables and his grandmother. Clear as day. You've started seeing things too, not dead relatives, but Earth things. You see birds flying through the station, which is impossible, but they look real. You see trees growing out of the walls, flowers blooming from the computers, grass covering the floor. Your brain is creating the nature you're desperate to see. Sometimes you smell things that aren't there: barbecue smoke, fresh bread, your wife's perfume, rain on hot pavement, your mom's cooking, coffee brewing. The smells are so real you look around for the source, but there's nothing, just the same metallic recycled air you've been breathing for 14 months. The hallucinations are getting stronger, more frequent, more convincing. Yesterday, you spent an hour talking to your dog, who was floating next to you, wagging his tail, looking exactly like he does at home. You knew it wasn't real, but you petted him anyway, talked to him anyway, because fake dog companionship is better than no companionship. Your wife calls and tells you about Christmas shopping, and you realize you've missed Christmas. You don't remember Christmas happening, don't remember anyone mentioning it. Time has become so meaningless that entire holidays pass without you noticing. Your daughter had Christmas morning without you, opened presents, ate Christmas dinner, made Christmas memories, and you were just floating here, eating paste, going insane. She got a bike for Christmas, a pink bike with streamers on the handlebars and training wheels that her dad, your wife's new boyfriend, helped her learn to ride. Wait, did she say boyfriend, or did you imagine that part? Your wife's voice sounds different lately, happier, like she's moving on, like she's building a new life that doesn't include you. You ask her to repeat what she said, but the transmission cuts out, and when it comes back she's talking about something else, about work, about the weather, about normal things that normal people care about. You try to ask about the boyfriend, but the words won't come out, because you're not sure what's real anymore. Food supplies are running dangerously low. What was supposed to last 6 months has been stretched to over a year. The portions keep getting smaller, the quality keeps getting worse. You're eating expired food now, food that tastes like chemicals, food that makes you sick, but there's nothing else. The water recycler is making horrible noises, grinding sounds, like metal eating metal. The water that comes out is brown sometimes, or has floating particles, or tastes like rust and despair. You're drinking water that might kill you, but dehydration will definitely kill you, so you drink it anyway. Yesterday, the toilet completely broke, not just clogged, but actually broken, pieces floating around, waste everywhere. The smell is indescribable, like death mixed with sewage mixed with the end of civilization. You spent 6 hours trying to fix it, covered in filth, breathing through your mouth. Wanting to die? You got it working, sort of, but now it only works half the time. And when it doesn't work, well, you figure it out. You've become an expert in waste management, in creative solutions to bathroom problems, in living like an animal while pretending to be an astronaut. The computers are failing too, screens flickering, systems crashing, error messages in languages you don't recognize. The station is falling apart around you, piece by piece, system by system. And there's no repair manual, for everything is broken and everyone is insane. Communication with Earth becomes more sporadic. Equipment failures, orbital positioning problems, solar interference. Sometimes you go days without talking to anyone. Just you and Steve and Martinez, floating in silence, going crazy together, like survivors of a shipwreck who've run out of things to say. When communication does work, your family sounds more distant, more formal, like they're talking to a stranger. Your wife asks about your health. Your daughter says hi. They tell you they love you. But it sounds like they're reading from a script, like they're being polite to someone they used to know. You try to tell them about the hallucinations, the broken equipment, the smell, the way Martinez screams in his sleep, the way Steve talks to dead people, the way you're all losing your minds. But they can't understand, can't relate, can't help. They just say hang in there, and we're proud of you, and other meaningless phrases. Your daughter asks when you're coming home, and you don't know what to say, because the answer is maybe never. The equipment is too broken, the crew is too damaged, the mission has become a disaster, but you can't tell a 7-year-old that daddy might die in space. So you say soon, and hate yourself for lying. The exercise equipment that broke months ago is now completely useless, just floating metal, taking up space, mocking you with its brokenness. Your body has given up trying to maintain muscle mass, bone density, cardiovascular fitness. You're basically a science experiment in human deterioration, a study in how quickly people fall apart in space. Your bones are so weak now that sneezing is dangerous. Coughing might crack ribs. Moving too quickly makes you dizzy. You float through the station like an old man. Careful, fragile, afraid of breaking. Even though you're already broken in every way that matters. Sleep is impossible, not just because of the floating, but because of the nightmares. You dream about falling, about drowning, about being buried alive, about Earth exploding while you watch from space, about your family forgetting you exist, about floating forever in the dark, never dying, never living, just existing in metal hell. You wake up screaming sometimes, and Steve and Martinez don't even react anymore. Screaming is normal now, like floating, like eating paste, like slowly going insane. It's just another sound in the symphony of space madness. Background noise in the concert of psychological collapse. The worst dreams are the good ones. Dreams where you're home, sleeping in your bed, eating breakfast with your family, walking your dog, feeling normal, feeling human, feeling real. You wake up from those dreams and reality hits like a punch to the face. You're still here, still floating, still trapped, still dying slowly in a metal coffin. Food becomes purely functional, fuel for a body that's shutting down. You don't taste it, don't enjoy it, don't even really eat it. You just consume it, like a machine consuming fuel, because machines don't care about flavor or texture or the simple pleasure of a good meal. You've forgotten what hunger feels like, real hunger, where you want food because it tastes good, where you look forward to eating, where meals are pleasure instead of just survival. Now you eat because you have to, because not eating means dying faster, and you're not ready to die, even though you're not really living. The station creaks and groans constantly now, metal expanding and contracting, systems failing and restarting. Emergency alarms going off for no reason. It sounds like the whole thing is falling apart, which it probably is, held together by hope and duct tape and the prayers of people who forgot how to pray. You find yourself talking to Earth, having one-sided conversations with the planet, telling it about your day, asking it questions, apologizing for leaving, begging it to take you back. The planet doesn't answer, just keeps rotating, showing you glimpses of home, of life, of everything you can't have. You see your country sometimes, a brown and green shape below the clouds, and you try to spot your city, your neighborhood, your house, but it's impossible. Too far, too small, too insignificant. You're looking for a needle in a haystack the size of a planet, from 250 miles away, through a dirty window, with eyes that don't work properly anymore. The food ran out yesterday, completely ran out. You're eating emergency rations now, protein bars that taste like cardboard mixed with despair, vitamin supplements that make you throw up, water that's been recycled so many times it barely qualifies as water anymore. This is how you die in space, slowly, hungrily, one expired protein bar at a time. Mission Control keeps saying the supply ship is coming. Next week, next month, soon. But you've heard that lie for 6 months now. The supply ship isn't coming, or it exploded, or they forgot about you, or they decided it's cheaper to let you die up here than to waste money on rescue missions. You're eating toothpaste now because it has calories. You're eating the soap because it's technically organic. You're eating anything that might keep you alive for one more day, even though you're not sure why you want to stay alive. Staying alive just means more floating, more madness, more slow death in a metal tube. Steve tried to eat his own hair yesterday, just grabbed handfuls and started chewing. Said it tasted like chicken, which it doesn't. It tastes like dirty string, but when you're starving, when your brain is broken, dirty string starts to look like food. Everything starts to look like food when you're desperate enough. Martinez opened one of the wall panels and started eating the insulation. Foam padding that's probably poisonous. Definitely not meant for human consumption. But he said he was tired of being hungry, tired of thinking about food, tired of dreaming about hamburgers and waking up to nothing. So he ate foam and threw up for 6 hours. You're all losing weight so fast that your clothes don't fit anymore, hanging off your bodies like fabric draped over skeletons. You look like concentration camp survivors, except concentration camp survivors eventually got liberated, got real food, gotta go home. You're just going to keep floating here, getting thinner, until you disappear completely. The hallucinations are constant now. You see restaurants everywhere. McDonald's, Pizza Hut, fancy steakhouses, complete with smells and sounds and other customers. You order food from hallucinatory waiters, eat imaginary meals, pay imaginary bills. Your brain has created an entire fantasy world of food because reality offers nothing. Yesterday you spent 3 hours at an imaginary Thanksgiving dinner, sitting at your mom's table, eating turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce, talking to relatives who were probably at work or asleep, or living their normal lives 250 miles below while you floated in space, eating nothing, talking to no one, slowly starving to death. Your wife calls less and less, maybe once every 2 weeks now, and when she does call, she sounds different, distant, like she's talking to someone she used to know. She tells you about her new job, her new friends, her new life, and you realize she's not waiting for you anymore. She's moving on, which is smart, which is healthy, which feels like dying. She mentions David a lot. David helped fix the car. David came to dinner. David took your daughter to the park. David is clearly your replacement, the man who's living your life, sleeping in your bed, being a father to your daughter, being a husband to your wife, while you float in space like an idiot. You want to be angry, want to feel betrayed, want to demand she wait for you. But you can't, because you know you're never coming home. You know this mission has become a slow suicide, and she deserves better than waiting for a ghost. Your daughter deserves a father who can actually be there, actually hug her, actually exist in her life. So you tell her you're happy for her, that David sounds nice, that you want her to be happy, and you mean it. Even though it feels like cutting out your own heart with a spoon, you give her permission to forget you, to love someone else, to build a life that doesn't include floating, because floating isn't living. The computers are failing faster now. Blue screens of death, system crashes, error messages that make no sense. The station is becoming dumber, more broken, more dangerous, running on backup systems that weren't designed for long-term use. You're flying in a metal coffin held together by hope and spare parts. Life support is working, mostly, but making horrible noises, grinding, wheezing, struggling to keep you alive. The air tastes worse every day, metallic, stale, recycled too many times, like breathing through a dirty sock. But it's the only air you have, so you breathe it and try not to think about what's in it. The water recycler broke completely yesterday. No more recycled urine. No more recycled humidity. No more water at all, except what's left in the emergency tanks. Maybe a week's worth if you're careful. Maybe 3 days if you're not. Water, the most basic thing for staying alive, and you're running out. You're rationing water like it's liquid gold. 1 sip every few hours, barely enough to keep your mouth wet. Your lips are cracked and bleeding. Your tongue feels like sandpaper. Your throat burns constantly. You're dying of thirst while floating in space, which seems like a cosmic joke, the universe laughing at your stupidity. Martinez found some cleaning fluid in a storage compartment and drank it. Said he was too thirsty to care if it killed him. It made him sick for hours, vomiting and convulsing, but he didn't die. Now he's talking about drinking more, about trying different chemicals, about finding creative ways to get liquid into his body, even if it's poison. Steve is talking to more dead people now. His grandmother, his old dog, his high school teacher, his first girlfriend. The station is full of ghosts according to Steve. friendly spirits who come to visit, who bring news from the afterlife, who tell him everything is going to be okay, which is probably the biggest lie ever told. You've started seeing your daughter, not as a hallucination, but as a memory that feels real. She's 7 years old, sitting next to you, telling you about school, about her friends, about the bike David bought her, about how she's learning to swim, about how she misses you, but she's okay. She talks for hours while you float there, listening, crying, grateful for the company. Even if it's not real, the emergency food is gone, completely gone. You're eating anything that might have calories, lip balm, hand lotion, anything organic, anything that won't immediately kill you. Your body is consuming itself, breaking down muscle, dissolving bone, burning fat that doesn't exist. You're becoming transparent, disappearing, fading away like a ghost. You can see your ribs through your skin. Count every bone, trace the outline of your skull. You look like a medical skeleton, something you'd see in a doctor's office. Except skeletons don't suffer, don't starve, don't float in metal tubes, don't slowly go insane from isolation and despair. Sleep is just unconsciousness now, not rest, not dreams, just your brain shutting down to conserve energy. You wake up weaker, more confused, less human. Sleep doesn't refresh you. It just postpones death for a few more hours, gives you time to suffer more, to float more, to experience more of this endless nightmare. The station's orbit is decaying, slowly, but measurably, without regular boosts from supply ships, without fuel for the thrusters. Gravity is winning, pulling you closer to Earth, inch by inch, day by day. In a few months, maybe weeks, you'll burn up in the atmosphere, become a shooting star, someone's wish come true, while you scream silently in a metal coffin. Part of you hopes for it, hopes for the burning, the quick end, the final release from this floating hell. Better to die as a meteor than to starve slowly. Better to burn bright for a few seconds than to fade away. Better to go out like a firework than to just stop like a broken machine. But part of you still hopes for rescue, still believes the supply ship is coming, still thinks you might make it home, might hug your daughter again, might sleep in a real bed, might eat real food, might feel like a human being instead of a ghost haunting a metal tube. Hope is stupid, but it's all you have left. You stare at Earth, your beautiful, impossible, unreachable home, and you understand now why people used to think it was heaven. It's perfect, blue and white and green, covered in life, covered in everything you want, everything you need, everything you can see but never touch. You can see weather, storms moving across continents, clouds forming and dissolving, lightning flashing in the darkness, rain falling on people who probably complain about getting wet, not knowing they're experiencing a miracle, not knowing that water falling from the sky is the most beautiful thing in the universe. You see city lights, millions of people going about their lives, driving cars, walking on sidewalks, sitting in restaurants, living in houses, doing normal things, boring things, incredible things. They have no idea how lucky they are, how perfect their lives are, how much you would give to trade places with any one of them. Now let's dive into what it's really like to be married to someone who leaves Earth. And I mean really married. Not the Hollywood version with dramatic goodbyes and romantic reunions. Not the NASA promotional videos with proud families waving at launch pads. But the actual day-by-day reality of loving someone who might never come home. Someone who chose rockets over your morning coffee together. Chose floating in space over sleeping next to you. Chose a metal tube over your warm bed. Chose everything except the life you built together. If you think long-distance relationships are hard, if you think military deployments are tough, if you think you understand what loneliness looks like, you're about to discover you know absolutely nothing. This isn't going to be about rocket science or space exploration. This is about sitting at your kitchen table, drinking coffee alone, staring at an empty chair, wondering if your husband is still alive, or if he's floating dead in a metal coffin 250 miles above your head. This is about explaining to your 7-year-old daughter why daddy can't come to her ballet recital, why he's not here for her birthday, why he's just a voice on the radio that gets quieter every week. If you're new here, prepare to never take your spouse for granted again. And if you've been here before, you know what's coming. Get comfortable, because you're about to realize how lucky you are to have someone sleeping next to you right now. Someone you can touch. Someone who's actually here. We're stepping into suburban Houston in 1998. You are Sarah Collins. Your husband is floating somewhere above your head. And you're about to learn why being an astronaut's wife is the loneliest job on Earth. You wake up alone, again, in a bed that feels too big, too empty, too quiet. The alarm clock says 6:30 a.m., but you've been awake since 4, listening to nothing, hoping for nothing, dreading the start of another day without him. The sheets on his side are cold. Not just cool, but actually cold, like no one has slept there in months, which they haven't. His pillow still smells like his shampoo, faintly, if you press your face into it and breathe deep, but the smell is fading, just like everything else about him. You reach for your phone, checking for messages, for emails, for any sign that he's still alive up there. The last communication was 3 days ago, a crackling voice saying, "Everything's fine. Missing you. Love you." But astronauts always say everything's fine, even when they're dying. The coffee maker gurgles to life, making coffee for one. Again, you used to make a full pot, enough for both of you. Morning conversations over steam and newspaper, planning your day together, complaining about the weather, normal married people things. Now you make 2 cups out of habit and pour one down the drain. Your daughter Emma stumbles into the kitchen, 7 years old, hair messy from sleep, asking the same question she asks every morning. Is daddy coming home today? And you give the same answer you've given for 6 months. Not today, sweetheart, but soon. But you don't know if soon means next week, or next year, or never. The mission was supposed to last 6 months. It's been 8 months, then 10 months, now over a year. And NASA keeps saying technical difficulties, extended research, minor delays. Emma pours cereal into her bowl, and automatically pours cereal into the bowl across from her, Daddy's bowl, the one that's been empty for over a year. She sets out a spoon for him, puts out the newspaper he used to read, makes place settings for a man who might be dead. You don't have the heart to tell her to stop, because setting out Daddy's bowl gives her hope, gives her something to do with her love, gives her a way to include him in breakfast, even though he's floating in space, eating paste from tubes, slowly going insane from isolation. The school bus honks outside, and Emma grabs her backpack, kisses you goodbye, runs out the door to face another day of questions. Where's your dad? Why isn't he at the school play? When is he coming back? Questions she can't answer, because you can't answer them either. You wave goodbye from the kitchen window, watching your daughter get smaller, get further away, get on with her life, while you stand in an empty house, holding a cup of coffee, wearing yesterday's clothes, trying to remember what it feels like to have a purpose. The house settles around you, creaking, sighing, adjusting to another day of emptiness. You walk through rooms that feel like a museum. Everything exactly where he left it. His books, his clothes, his coffee cup still in the sink, waiting for him to come home and wash it. His office is the worst. Papers scattered on his desk, flight manuals open to pages he was studying, photos of spacecraft pinned to the wall, evidence of the thing he loved more than you, more than his daughter, more than the life you built together. Space, the cold, empty void that stole your husband. You sit in his chair, touch his keyboard, smell his cologne on the jacket hanging behind the door, and try to remember the last real conversation you had. Not through radio static, not through mission control, not through the filter of space, but face to face, human to human, husband to wife. It was the morning he left, over a year ago. He was excited, nervous, talking about the mission, the experiments, the incredible opportunity. while you made his favorite breakfast, while you tried to memorize his face, while you pretended to be happy for him. He promised it would be quick, 6 months maximum. Promised he'd be back for Emma's birthday, for Christmas, for all the important things. He kissed you goodbye, said he loved you, walked out the door, and disappeared into the sky, leaving you with a house full of memories and a daughter full of questions. The phone rings, and your heart jumps, hoping it's NASA, hoping it's news, hoping it's anything except another bill collector. Another friend asking how you're holding up. Another person who doesn't understand that you're not holding up, you're falling apart, piece by piece, day by day. It's your mother, calling to check on you, asking the same questions. Any word from Michael? How are you managing? Do you need anything? And you give the same answers. No news. We're fine. We don't need anything. Even though you need everything. You need your husband. You need your daughter's father. You need someone to share the weight of existing. Your mother suggests you get out more. Meet new people. Keep yourself busy, like your husband is temporarily out of town instead of potentially dead in space. Like you can just replace him with hobbies and social activities. Like the gaping hole in your life can be filled with book clubs and yoga classes. You hang up and return to the silence, the crushing weight of a house designed for 3 people, occupied by 1. You turn on the TV for noise, for voices, for the illusion of company. But even the TV announcers sound lonely, talking to cameras instead of people, just like you talk to empty rooms. The news shows a brief segment about the International Space Station, grainy footage of astronauts floating around, conducting experiments, looking professional and competent. They don't show the broken equipment, the failing life support, the slow psychological breakdown, the way isolation turns people into ghosts. You stare at the footage, trying to spot your husband, trying to see him in the blurry shapes floating past the camera, but they all look the same, faceless figures in identical uniforms. They could be anyone. They could be no one. They could be dead for all you know. The segment ends, 3 minutes of space coverage, then back to politics, sports, weather. The world moves on. People go about their lives, caring about things that matter to them, while your entire universe floats in a metal tube, 250 miles above everyone's head. You check your email, hoping for updates from NASA, hoping for personal messages, hoping for anything that proves your husband still exists. But there's nothing, just spam, bills, automated notifications. The digital equivalent of silence. Proof that the world has forgotten about the astronauts, forgotten about their families, forgotten about you. Emma comes home from school, backpack dragging, shoulders slumped, face showing the strain of another day without Daddy. She doesn't run to the door anymore, doesn't ask if Daddy called, doesn't expect good news. She's learning what you learned months ago, that hope hurts too much to maintain. Dinner is the hardest part. 3-place settings at a table meant for family conversations. Emma picks at her food, tells you about her day in short sentences, saves the interesting stories for Daddy, for phone calls that don't come, for a father who's becoming more myth than man. You eat in near silence, the sound of forks on plates, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant noise of neighbors living normal lives, arguing about normal problems, dealing with husbands who come home, who eat dinner, who help with homework, who exist in the same dimension as their families. After dinner, Emma does homework at the kitchen table, while you wash dishes, both of you going through the motions, maintaining routines that used to include a third person, used to feel complete, used to make sense. Now you're just killing time, marking days, waiting for something that might never happen. Bedtime is when Emma breaks down, when the brave face she wears all day finally cracks. She wants Daddy to read her a story, to check for monsters under the bed, to tell her everything's going to be okay. But Daddy is floating in space, fighting his own monsters, maybe not okay himself. You read the story instead, the same stories Daddy used to read, in your voice instead of his, with your interpretation instead of his funny accents. Emma listens politely, but you both know it's not the same. Nothing is the same. Nothing will ever be the same. She asks the question she asks every night. Is Daddy scared up there? And you give the answer you give every night. No, sweetheart. Daddy is brave. Daddy is having an adventure. But you know he's terrified. No, he's lonely. No, he's probably regretting his decision to leave, to choose space over family, to prioritize exploration over the people who love him. You know because you've heard it in his voice, in the brief communications, in the pauses between words. Emma finally falls asleep, clutching the stuffed astronaut Daddy gave her before he left, a toy version of what he became, a harmless representation of the thing that took him away. You sit by her bed, watching her sleep, wondering if she'll remember him clearly, wondering if he'll become just a story you tell, just pictures on the wall. You close Emma's door and walk to your bedroom, the bedroom you used to share. Now just a room with a bed too big for one person. You sit on his side, press your face into his pillow, and let yourself cry. Really cry, the ugly sobbing kind of crying that you hide from Emma, hide from your mother, hide from everyone who thinks you should be holding up better. The NASA Wife Support Group meets tomorrow. Other women in your exact situation. Other families destroyed by the romance of space exploration. You're supposed to go, supposed to find comfort in shared misery, supposed to bond over the unique hell of loving someone who chose rockets over relationships. But you can't stand those meetings, can't stand the forced optimism, the way everyone pretends this is temporary, the way they talk about their husbands like they're on business trips instead of potentially dead in metal coffins. The group leader, Janet, has been doing this for 20 years. Her husband died on re-entry in 1986. But she still talks about when our heroes come home. You've stopped going? Stop pretending that group therapy can fix the fact that your husband abandoned you, abandoned his daughter, for the chance to float in a tube and drink recycled urine. No amount of sharing and caring can change the fact that he chose this, chose to leave, chose space over Earth, chose everything except his family. The house creaks around you, settling into night, preparing for another 8 hours of emptiness. You used to love nighttime, when Emma was asleep, when you and Michael could talk, really talk, about dreams and fears and stupid things that seemed important. Now nighttime is just more loneliness, more silence, more time to think about everything that's wrong. You check your phone again, hoping, always hoping, for messages that don't come, calls that don't happen, signs of life from someone who might already be dead. The last real conversation was 3 weeks ago, garbled, full of static, him saying he loved you while the connection cut in and out, words disappearing into space, just like he did. Sleep doesn't come easily, hasn't come easily in over a year. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house, to your own breathing, to the absence of his breathing next to you. The bed feels cold, empty, like sleeping alone in a tomb, like being the only person left alive in a world designed for two. When you do sleep, you dream about him, but not good dreams. You dream he's calling for help, floating in a broken space station, suffocating slowly while you watch from Earth, unable to reach him, unable to save him, unable to do anything except witness his death from 250 miles away. You dream about Emma asking where Daddy is, and you have to tell her he's never coming home, that he died doing what he loved, that he chose space over her, over you, over the life you built together. You dream about explaining to a 7-year-old that some people love exploration more than they love their families. You wake up at 3 a.m., sweating, crying, reaching for someone who isn't there, who might never be there again. The house is dark, quiet, empty, like a museum of your former life, like a shrine to everything that used to matter before rockets, before missions, before your husband decided to become a ghost. Morning comes, another morning, another day of explaining to Emma why Daddy isn't here, another day of making breakfast for one, another day of living half a life, waiting for someone who might be floating dead in space, who might have forgotten you exist, who might be planning to stay up there forever. Emma's school calls. She's been acting out, getting in fights, telling other kids that her daddy is dead, even though you told her he's just away. She's 7 years old, trying to process abandonment, trying to understand why her father chose floating over being her dad, trying to make sense of something that makes no sense. You pick her up early, find her sitting in the principal's office, small and sad and angry. She looks at you with eyes that are too old, too knowing, too aware that life isn't fair, that parents leave, that promises get broken, that some people choose adventure over love. Why did Daddy leave us? She asks in the car, not for the first time, not for the last time. And you don't know what to say, because the truth is too harsh. He left because space seemed more exciting than suburban life, more important than bedtime stories, more valuable than being present for the people who needed him. He left because he's selfish, because he prioritized his dreams over your reality. But you can't tell a 7-year-old that her father is selfish, can't destroy her image of the man she loves, can't explain that some people choose themselves over their families. So you say what you always say: Daddy had to go to work. Daddy will come home. Daddy loves us very much. Even though you're not sure any of that is true anymore. The bills are piling up: mortgage payments, car payments, Emma's school expenses, things that used to be shared burdens, manageable when split between two incomes, two people, two parents working together. Now it's just you, trying to maintain a household designed for two, trying to afford a life you can't afford alone. NASA provides some support, death benefits if he dies, partial salary while he's deployed, but it's not enough. Nothing is enough when you're suddenly single parenting, single income, single everything, while still technically married to someone who might as well be dead. You consider selling the house, moving somewhere smaller, somewhere that doesn't echo with memories of him, doesn't remind you constantly of the life you used to have. But Emma's room is here, her school is here, her friends are here, and moving would feel like giving up, like admitting he's never coming back. Your sister calls, suggests you start dating. It's been over a year. You can't wait forever. Emma needs a father figure. Like your husband is just gone instead of floating in space. Like you can replace him with someone local, someone earthbound, someone who chooses family over rockets. But you can't imagine dating. Can't imagine explaining to someone new that you're married to a man who might be dead, who chose space over you, who left you to raise his daughter alone while he pursued his dreams. Can't imagine being intimate with someone when your heart is floating 250 miles above your head. The loneliness is crushing, not just missing him, but missing being part of something. Missing having someone to share decisions with, someone to talk to at the end of the day, someone who cares about your problems, your fears, your daily struggles with single parenthood. You talk to yourself now, full conversations, planning your day out loud, commenting on the news, responding to TV shows, like you're still part of a couple, like someone is listening, like your thoughts matter to another human being. But the only audience is empty rooms, silent walls, air that doesn't care. Emma starts seeing a counselor, a child psychologist who specializes in abandonment issues, in children whose parents leave voluntarily or involuntarily. She comes home with worksheets about feelings, exercises for dealing with absent fathers, coping mechanisms for kids whose dads chose other things. The counselor suggests family therapy, but how do you have family therapy when the family is scattered across space? When one member is floating in a metal tube? When the family is really just two people trying to figure out how to exist without the third, without the center, without the person who made you a family instead of just two individuals living in the same house? You attend a NASA family briefing. Other wives, other children, other families torn apart by the romance of space exploration. They show videos of the astronauts, healthy, smiling, conducting experiments. They don't show the broken equipment, the failed communication, the way space changes people, breaks them, turns them into something that can't come home. The mission director, a man who's never been to space, who goes home to his family every night, explains the minor delays, the technical challenges, the extended research opportunities. He uses words like valuable and groundbreaking and historic, while you sit there wondering if your husband is still alive. Other wives ask questions. When will they come home? Are they safe? Can we talk to them more often? Questions that get non-answers, bureaucratic responses, reassurances that mean nothing, promises that sound increasingly hollow as the months stretch into years. You stop asking questions, stop believing answers, stop hoping for good news. You've learned that NASA doesn't really know what's happening up there, doesn't really have control, doesn't really care about families, only about missions, about data, about advancing human knowledge at the cost of human relationships. Emma's 8th birthday approaches, another milestone without Daddy, another celebration that feels incomplete. She wants a space-themed party, wants to pretend Daddy is coming home for her birthday, wants to include him somehow, even though he's floating in space, eating paste from tubes, slowly losing his mind. You plan the party, invite her friends, order a cake with rockets and astronauts, hang up decorations that remind you of the thing that took your husband away. The other parents ask about Michael, where he is, when he's coming back, questions you can't answer, questions that highlight how abnormal your life has become. The party happens, kids running around, playing games, eating cake, normal childhood joy happening around the absence of a father. Emma smiles, laughs, has fun, but you see her looking at the door, waiting for Daddy to surprise her, to show up, to make her day perfect. But the door stays closed, Daddy stays in space, and another birthday passes without him. That night, after the guests leave, after the decorations come down, after Emma goes to bed, you sit in the kitchen, looking at the leftover cake, at the slice you saved for him, at the evidence of another celebration he missed, another milestone he chose to skip, another moment of his daughter's life he sacrificed for space. You throw the cake away, clean up the mess, turn off the lights, and go to bed alone. Again, in a house that feels more empty after being full, in a life that feels more broken after pretending to be whole. You close your eyes and dream about a different choice, a different husband, a different life where space stays in the sky where it belongs. The bills are piling up, mortgage payments, car payments, Emma's school expenses, things that used to be shared burdens, manageable when split between two incomes, two people, two parents working together. Now it's just you, trying to maintain a household designed for two, trying to afford a life you can't afford alone. NASA provides some support, death benefits if he dies, partial salary while he's deployed, but it's not enough. Nothing is enough when you're suddenly single parenting, single income, single everything, while still technically married to someone who might as well be dead. You consider selling the house, moving somewhere smaller, somewhere that doesn't echo with memories of him, doesn't remind you constantly of the life you used to have. But Emma's room is here, her school is here, her friends are here, and moving would feel like giving up, like admitting he's never coming back. Your sister calls, suggests you start dating. It's been over a year. You can't wait forever. Emma needs a father figure. Like your husband is just gone instead of floating in space. Like you can replace him with someone local, someone earthbound, someone who chooses family over rockets. But you can't imagine dating. Can't imagine explaining to someone new that you're married to a man who might be dead, who chose space over you, who left you to raise his daughter alone while he pursued his dreams. Can't imagine being intimate with someone when your heart is floating 250 miles above your head. The loneliness is crushing, not just missing him, but missing being part of something. Missing having someone to share decisions with, someone to talk to at the end of the day, someone who cares about your problems, your fears, your daily struggles with single parenthood. You talk to yourself now, full conversations, planning your day out loud, commenting on the news, responding to TV shows, like you're still part of a couple, like someone is listening, like your thoughts matter to another human being. But the only audience is empty rooms, silent walls, air that doesn't care. Emma starts seeing a counselor, a child psychologist who specializes in abandonment issues, in children whose parents leave voluntarily or involuntarily. She comes home with worksheets about feelings, exercises for dealing with absent fathers, coping mechanisms for kids whose dads chose other things. The counselor suggests family therapy, but how do you have family therapy when the family is scattered across space? When one member is floating in a metal tube? When the family is really just two people trying to figure out how to exist without the third, without the center, without the person who made you a family instead of just two individuals living in the same house? You attend a NASA family briefing. Other wives, other children, other families torn apart by the romance of space exploration. They show videos of the astronauts, healthy, smiling, conducting experiments. They don't show the broken equipment, the failed communication, the way space changes people, breaks them, turns them into something that can't come home. The mission director, a man who's never been to space, who goes home to his family every night, explains the minor delays, the technical challenges, the extended research opportunities. He uses words like valuable and groundbreaking and historic, while you sit there wondering if your husband is still alive. Other wives ask questions. When will they come home? Are they safe? Can we talk to them more often? Questions that get non-answers, bureaucratic responses, reassurances that mean nothing, promises that sound increasingly hollow as the months stretch into years. You stop asking questions, stop believing answers, stop hoping for good news. You've learned that NASA doesn't really know what's happening up there, doesn't really have control, doesn't really care about families, only about missions, about data, about advancing human knowledge at the cost of human relationships. Emma's 8th birthday approaches, another milestone without Daddy, another celebration that feels incomplete. She wants a space-themed party, wants to pretend Daddy is coming home for her birthday, wants to include him somehow, even though he's floating in space, eating paste from tubes, slowly losing his mind. You plan the party, invite her friends, order a cake with rockets and astronauts, hang up decorations that remind you of the thing that took your husband away. The other parents ask about Michael, where he is, when he's coming back, questions you can't answer, questions that highlight how abnormal your life has become. The party happens, kids running around, playing games, eating cake, normal childhood joy happening around the absence of a father. Emma smiles, laughs, has fun, but you see her looking at the door, waiting for Daddy to surprise her, to show up, to make her day perfect. But the door stays closed, Daddy stays in space, and another birthday passes without him. That night, after the guests leave, after the decorations come down, after Emma goes to bed, you sit in the kitchen, looking at the leftover cake, at the slice you saved for him, at the evidence of another celebration he missed, another milestone he chose to skip, another moment of his daughter's life he sacrificed for space. You throw the cake away, clean up the mess, turn off the lights, and go to bed alone. Again, in a house that feels more empty after being full, in a life that feels more broken after pretending to be whole. You close your eyes and dream about a different choice, a different husband, a different life where space stays in the sky where it belongs. The phone rings at 2:47 a.m., and you just know, before you even answer. NASA doesn't call at 2:47 a.m. with good news. They don't wake up families in the middle of the night to say everything's fine. They call at 2:47 a.m. to tell you that your husband, your daughter's father, the man who chose space over family, is never coming home. The voice on the other end is professional, practiced, gentle, but distant. Mrs. Collins, this is Mission Control. We need to inform you that contact with the International Space Station has been lost. Orbital decay has resulted in atmospheric entry. There were no survivors. No survivors. Such clinical words for the end of everything. For the moment when your maybe widow status becomes definitely widow, When Emma's absent father becomes dead father. When the slim hope you've been clinging to for 18 months finally snaps and sends you falling into a reality you've been dreading. You hang up the phone, and the house is exactly the same. Still empty, still quiet, still designed for 3 people who will never all be here again. Nothing has changed except everything. He was unreachable before. Now he's unreachable forever. He was absent before. Now he's permanently gone. You've been alone. Now you'll always be alone. Emma is still sleeping, still dreaming, still believing her daddy might come home. She doesn't know yet that her father burned up like a shooting star, that someone probably saw him streaking across the sky and made a wish, not knowing they were watching a family die, watching a little girl become fatherless, watching you become the thing you never wanted to be, a single mother with a dead husband and a broken heart. You sit in the kitchen, in the dark, at the table where you've eaten alone for 18 months, where Emma has set daddy's place every morning, where you've both pretended he was just temporarily away, just delayed, just coming home soon. Now there's no pretending, no maybe, no hope, just the reality of absence becoming permanent. The sun rises, like it always does, like it did yesterday when your husband was floating in space, like it will tomorrow when you have to explain to an 8-year-old that daddy is never coming home, that the shooting star someone probably wished on last night was her father dying, was your husband choosing space over family one final time. Emma wakes up, comes downstairs, pours cereal into 2 bowls, sets out daddy's spoon, arranges his napkin, performs the ritual she's performed every morning for over a year, not knowing it's the last time, not knowing that daddy's bowl will never be filled again, not knowing that she's about to learn what forever means. You watch her prepare breakfast for a dead man. Watch her maintain hope that died at 30,000 feet. Watch her believe in a return that will never happen. And you know that in 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or whenever you find the courage, you're going to destroy her world, shatter her hope, teach her that some people never come home. She looks at you, notices your red eyes, your exhausted face, the way you're sitting perfectly still like movement might break you. Mommy, are you okay? Did daddy call? And you take a breath, the deepest breath of your life, because everything changes after this moment, after these words, after you tell your daughter that her father, who chose rockets over bedtime stories, who chose floating in space over being present on Earth, who chose everything except his family, is dead. Emma, sweetheart, come sit with mommy. We need to talk about daddy. And as she walks toward you, still in her pajamas, still believing in possibilities, still thinking daddy might surprise her at breakfast, you understand the ultimate truth about loving someone who leaves Earth. That space doesn't just take astronauts. It takes families. It takes marriages. It takes little girls' fathers and wives' husbands. It takes everything and gives nothing back except silence, except absence, except the kind of emptiness that no amount of scientific advancement can fill. You hold your daughter, feel her small body against yours, smell her sleepy hair, and know that from this moment forward, it's just the 2 of you. Just you and Emma, just what's left of a family that was broken by the stars, destroyed by dreams, ended by the choice to leave Earth, to choose the void over love, to prioritize exploration over the people who needed him here. The house settles around you, quiet, empty, permanent, ready for a life without him, ready for Emma to grow up with a dead father instead of an absent one, ready for you to learn how to be a widow instead of an astronaut's wife, ready for both of you to discover that some people never come home, because some people choose to die in space rather than live on Earth with the people who love them. And in the kitchen, where his coffee cup still sits in the sink, where his newspaper still waits on the counter, where his place at the table will always be empty, you begin the hardest conversation of your life, the one that teaches your daughter what daddy really chose, what space exploration really costs, what it means when someone loves the stars more than they love coming home. The conversation that ends with understanding, finally, completely. Why you wouldn't survive being an astronaut's wife. Because survival isn't about living through it. It's about what's left of you when it's over. And what's left is everything space couldn't take. Everything that stays on Earth. Everything that matters more than floating in the dark. Everything that makes being human, being earthbound, being present, the only choice that really matters. Everything your husband never understood until it was too late. Until he was burning up in the atmosphere. Until he was dying in the sky, probably wishing, finally, that he had chosen differently. Chosen Earth, chosen family, chosen love over loneliness, chosen you.